best dimension ever.
Welcome back to another DC Breakdown with Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3. And this episode, even though it was shorter, was an absolute fantastic time. Especially giving us more of that very suspicious Earth that the other Peacemaker is from. So what we're going to be doing is breaking down this episode, going over all the Easter eggs and references, the way it canonizes to the DCEU, and also just talking about some theories that might be going on. Plus something from last week when it comes to the general Earth, which we'll start with that now. And it turns out that James Gunn actually referred to this Earth as Earth 2. Now, Earth 2 in the comics is not the same as this whatsoever, where Earth 2 in the comics is kind of that golden age of comics, where before Crisis, that's how they define the DC Universe, where the Silver Age was the main Earth, and Earth 2 ended up becoming the Golden Age, which was cool, and then later on it changed again, but it was more for the Earth 2 being known as like the Justice Society Earth, where all the superheroes were a lot older, and that's how it was pre-Crisis. Now, at first, my theory was that this was going to be Earth X, where the Nazis won and took over the world, and another theory going around is that this was going to be Earth 3, where the crime syndicate is from, where the evil Justice League is from. Especially with the Superman clone and Superman being called Ultraman then going through the wormhole, it kind of makes you think that, maybe they were setting up the crime syndicate, which they still could be doing, and these are little teases here and there. However, as of right now, James Gunn has called this Earth Earth 2, but that could just be a misdirect where it's just Earth 2, as in like this is just the second Earth we're going to, rather than being a classification in the multiverse. However, he's also stated that this is not a multiverse story, so we'll definitely see what he means as we go forward into the series. Now, the way the episode starts, which can be a little confusing, and I think I figured it out, which starts with a 3 years ago flashback with Rick Flag and Harcourt sleeping together. However, they do set this up seeming like he's going to Corto Maltese, and that mission from the Suicide Squad is still happening, making it seem like it's on the main DCU Earth. However, they do mention how he's dating June Moon, aka the Enchantress, which he was doing in the first Suicide Squad movie by David Ayer. Now, back in that movie, Enchantress was played by Cara Delevingne, and the way that movie went out is the Enchantress started taking over the city, and her brother, who were turning people into these creatures that they were using as their army. Now, the thing is, with how this is all playing out, and mentioning June Moon, they do mention that he's cheating on her and is scared of breaking up with her because she might burrow a hole just throughout the planet, meaning that the events of David Ayer's Suicide Squad don't play out the same. Because during that movie, Rick Flag was hurt. He had to crush the heart of the Enchantress, thinking he's killing June Moon, the woman he loved, and instead, it doesn't seem like that played out at all. Because Enchantress is still alive, June Moon is still connected to her. However, Rick Flag also does not want to be with her, which changes up some of the events a little bit. Which at first thought, this seems like it's taking place on the main DCU Earth. It's leading up with the events that Rick Flag was a part of in the DCEU. It's still tying into some of the stuff that seemingly might be canon, might not be. Even though I think we all kind of know by now that the DCEU stuff, that's not the stuff James Gunn was directly involved in, is definitely not canon whatsoever. And when I was watching it, I'm like, oh my god, is James Gunn really canonizing these events? But then it seems to be a complete misdirect. But as we continue watching, it turns out that Rick Flag is actually alive on this alternate Earth, which means that 3 years ago flashback is definitely a alternate Earth story rather than being the main DCU. However, we'll talk more about that Rick Flag as we move forward in the video. Plus, on top of it, if Harcourt was really sleeping with Rick Flag before Corto Maltese and then the events played out, I don't think she'd be so happy about hooking up and having feelings for a Peacemaker, the man who literally killed Rick Flag, and she would have known that by literally working with Argus. So definitely some things that kind of threw alarm bells in my head while we were watching it. Now, after editing this video, I did come across someone talking about how they're pretty sure that this is the main timeline DCU Rick Flag and Harcourt, because Gunn came out and said that him and Jennifer knew that she had a relationship with Rick Flag, and they played it that way since season 1. Which is something I didn't hear before, and I'm very curious to see, how it's going to play out this season now, with Peacemaker wanting to be with Harcourt and being in love with her, especially if she had a thing with Rick Flag. It's going to cause a lot of drama and a lot of complications for what Peacemaker wants. On top of it, that also means that at least the Enchantress that had the relationship within the Suicide Squad movie is canon, but only the relationship part. And because the relationship part is canon, that means none of the events of the Suicide Squad happened because she never died. I will say I do like the idea of it being a misdirect though at the start of the episode to make us think one thing before we see the additional Rick Flag later in the episode, but that's just my little theory, and I feel like It's probably not misdirect because of this new information, but let me know what you think. Now, what we'll do for the video is when we're talking about the main episode, we'll go over the alternate Earth stuff, and then we'll talk about the DCU Earth stuff on 2 separate occasions until they link up at the very end of the episode. Because the way the episode starts off on that alternate Earth is Keith waking up Peacemaker, questioning him about the bloody library, what's been going on, if he's been taking substances again, and it's showing that the Peacemaker of this alternate Earth has been going through some stuff. Especially when Peacemaker gets up and starts opening up the drawers to get changed, and his clothes are definitely less desirable from what he would normally wear. We do see a bunch of pill bottles showing that he was going through something where that Peacemaker had a substance abuse problem. Now, we also see that when he was drunk, he was texting Harcourt about going to see her. So Buddy just kept drunk texting her as he was completely intoxicated. We have him making fun of the Kardashians about the way he's dressing, and it turns out on this Earth that the Kardashians either weren't famous or don't exist, because Keith asking who they are. We end up having this little fun moment of him just trying to figure out what's going on in this world as he stumbles over himself because, again, he's not from this world, so he doesn't know the kind of relationship he has with his brother, and he's trying to figure out how to navigate without giving it away. Then in this world, he has the Peace Cycle, a mode of transportation that has rocket launchers and miniguns on the front of it, which sets him up to just do a kind of a cool badass drive down the street, where it turns out in this universe, every single person loves him. Also, the bike is a Harley Davidson, and that's just a cool little nod to Harley Davidson. But the way they showed that everyone's loving him in this universe is definitely a surprise for him, because this shows him being in like this perfect world where he's cheered as a hero rather than not being seen as one and only being seen as a joke. So it's really showing how Peacemaker can fall in love with this world because it's somewhere he's always wanted to be. However, there is a very, very dark thing going on in the background that most people might not notice. And that's the fact that every single person we see in this episode on that alternate Earth is white. I didn't see another race unless I am tripping, but there's definitely only white people, which kind of points more to the theory that his family, they're heroes, but only for the white people, and that anybody else who's a different race has been removed off the board. Even when Peacemaker went to Argus, every single person in that office seemed to be white. So really showing like how distorted this world is and how different it is from their own. Now, when he goes to Argus, we do get to see him using his eye to confirm his identity, which just shows that the multiverse variants of these characters all look the same. They seem to have the same kind of molecular structure and way their body looks that is exactly the same as the other one. If that doesn't seem confusing at all, at least they're a copy of each other. Now, this is where we find out before the 3-year flashback that Rick Flag is alive on this Earth, kind of confirming that the one we saw at the very start of the episode is most likely the same one. The difference is with this Rick Flag compared to the one we saw in the DCU is that this one is more of a clumsy, dorky guy who tries to act tough but really isn't, and also is wearing a long button shirt rather than wearing the t-shirt we saw in the Suicide Squad. And I love how they did this interaction because it's Peacemaker being startled. He doesn't know how to react because the man he murdered and deeply regrets is standing in front of him and acting all nonchalant about it. So it's really showing, Peacemaker having to deal with that trauma coming up again, where he's like, oh my god, the guy I killed is standing in front of me. Plus, after he killed Rick Flag, he said, Peacemaker, what a joke, really making him question what kind of hero he wants to be, especially when he got his ass kicked and got shot down by Bloodsport. It's really showing how much he's had to overcome over the first season. Now he has to deal with the second season, and now facing Rick Flag once again. He has to deal with all that trauma again. And that's his big journey this season, is overcoming that trauma to be the hero he wants to be. But we end up having Peacemaker and Harcourt going on a walk after Peacemaker calls her Harcourt, and she's like, what, we're doing last names now? Because in this universe, they call each other by their first names. But while they're going on this walk in this perfect world, it makes it seem like it would be Peacemaker's perfect life. He's with the woman he loves, having a good time. They're celebrated as heroes as we see that mural on the wall with his dad and his brother, showing them be heroes of this town, and really showing that something else is going on, where it continues to show not a single non-white person around. So they just carefully show it in the background, making you kind of see what's going on. And it also points out that this version of Harcourt is seeing Rick Flag, as they're talking about how Rick Flag is with her, and how Peacemaker, if he wants to get together once again, he has to change who he is. And that's, again, another solid point, showing that the flashback we saw at the beginning is from this Earth. Now, on top of it, plus while they're talking, we find out that Peacemaker of this Earth is not someone who is big on commitment. He cheated on Harcourt, he was never really ready for a relationship, and even though he talked about the trauma he went through and how his feelings are, it was a complete opposite of what this universe's Peacemaker is really like. And that's kind of a twist on how Harcourt and Peacemaker are on their DCU Earth, and where Harcourt is the one that's kind of pulling away, doesn't want to deal with the emotions, the one that's kind of pushing herself away from it, where in this universe, it was Peacemaker doing it. So really interesting how they kind of swap their mentalities about who they really are, and how the different way they think about stuff is been changed between the characters. However, because this is probably still a racist Earth, we're still having issues, especially when it comes up to the Sons of Liberty running into the field, one tripping and just exploding in front of them, which I was honestly caught off guard where they just blew up. R.I.P. Jerry, because Buddy just blew up into a million pieces. But when we heard that they're the Sons of Liberty, they mentioned that they have been tired of being ruled under their corruption in the government, and that they've been blowing up government buildings because of them trying to get back at them. So they're a terrorist group that are going after them, but the fact that they're talking about the corrupt government makes me think that there is definitely a oppressive society going on here that is kind of hidden, that you don't really see because everything seems all happy and joyful, but it's showing that there's something darker here. Now, in the comics, the Sons of Liberty are not like this, where the Sons of Liberty are a secret American ultra-patriotic paramilitary organization that sought to overthrow the United States government. They first appeared in Superman, Volume 2, number 53 from March 1991. So definitely a different type of group, where this, yeah, I would say that they're still trying to overthrow possibly the United States government, and that's kind of there. But it seems like with this universe, and especially them talking about the corruption, they're probably the good guys, which also makes it so that when Peacemaker jumps through that building, it absolutely starts fucking them up, showing that Peacemaker might have just killed the good guys, where the bad guys are actually the heroes and the good guys are actually the bad guys. So I don't think he's gonna really feel that good after when he finds out what's going on. But like, the brutality of him coming in was awesome. Having Peacemaker put the axe in that guy's head, the pencil kill was insane, and it's just like these really badass moments of him literally just taking everyone out. Some great action, but also showing that he probably just killed some good guys. And then I love that we had Keith coming in, flying and destroying the helicopter, but at the same time, not caring about any of the civilians on the ground, because that helicopter would have caused civilian casualties by being so reckless. So these guys seem like they're probably reckless superheroes, even though they're saving the day. They're causing danger to everyone else around them. That's where we're going to stop talking about that part of the episode, and we're going to jump back to the DCU Earth, because even though that was an absolutely banger part of the episode with very mysterious stuff going on, it is really interesting to see how they're doing stuff. Now, as we go into the main Earth stuff, we do have the 11th Street kids waking up at Harcourt's place because everyone got drunk and stayed there except Peacemaker, who went back home. And I like how we just have Abadeo questioning Harcourt about how there's something between her and Peacemaker, showing that, you know, Abadeo knows that, you know, Harcourt and him have something going on, but she won't admit it. And I love that Vigilante's like, yo, nothing's going on. We share everything together. There are no secrets between us. My best friend would show me. I like how it's Vigilante being so oblivious to what's going on. And he's trying to trust in his best friend. And then he goes on a rambling spree about crows, which I love Vigilante's chaos. It's so much fun. I love his character. But that's when we have Abadeo and Harcourt leaving and talking about how Peacemaker is in love with Harcourt. And it just shows this really nice moment of how Peacemaker stayed with Hark when she was in a coma, showing how he truly cares about her. Even Adebayo calling Harcourt a train wreck, showing that she needs to get her shit together because she's the problem here, and Peacemaker is the good guy trying to look out for her. And it's really showing where, you know, they're probably going to bond by the end of the season and finally, you know, rekindle the romantic relationship. But while that's going on, we have Economos and Vigilante talking about spider trivia. Just like a little fun moment between them. Vigilante mentions Martians having one big eye. Now, Martians don't have one big eye within the main continuity. However, in the new Absolute Martian Manhunter storyline from the Absolute line, he does have one eye. So I guess it's a new reference to that. It definitely, saying Martians again definitely makes me think of Martian Manhunter. And I feel like they've said Martian twice already. You know, we got to see it come at some point. Now, on top of it, at the very end of the episode, because it's kind of relevant for this part, we do have Vigilante taking off Economos' pants to go wash him, like he mentions in the scene. And I love the little end clips of the episode where they have these little fun moments of stuff that happened in the episode. It's just a fun moment. That's all it is. It's just fun. I'm sure at some point the little post-credit scenes will have more relevancy as we get closer to the end of the series, but every one I've seen so far has just been a fun moment, and I'm having a good time with it. Now, while this is all going on as well, Bordeaux calls Economos to ask him about why Peacemaker has a superpowered duck, which he does not. It's just the bird blindness, once again showing that Flurry does not know what's going on. Buddy thinks an eagle is a duck, and he keeps saying that, oh, he told me it was a duck, he told me it was a duck, when it really was not. But it was funny just to see how they think that Peacemaker knew they were coming and set up the eagle to be like this, to be the attack eagle, even though Eagle is just always there. They also, while this is all going on, they reference the Metropolis incident once again, the fact that Metropolis got ripped in half by that dimensional portal, and they're worried about it happening again, which is why they want to go after Peacemaker. Now, we also get to meet Red St. Wild, who's being played by Michael Rooker, who did play Savant during the Suicide Squad movie, and he's been introduced into the series to be the Eagle Hunter to kill Eagly, which he's also been talked about how he's going to be Eagly's nemesis, and I'm looking forward to seeing Eagly go after a hunter who's trying to hunt him down. We also have Judo Master making his return once again after the first season, where Economos fought him. Now, we have him having to work with Economos, and it's just fun to see him, because he's a fun character. In the first season, he was that butterfly sympathizer, and I can't wait to see what they're going to be doing with him in this season, and how he's going to be goofing off and fighting. Plus, in the comics, he first appeared in Special Wars #4 from 1965. So a little cool reference from there, and nice to see him once again. Now, with all this going on, that's where we jump back into what's going on with Peacemaker, where Peacemaker is going to sit with his brother after a good day's work of being superheroes, and he gets to say he loves him, and that he's there for him, which is a nice brotherly moment where Peacemaker gets to see his brother once again, who's been dead for him for a long time, and he gets to hear he loves him and that he's there for him, which makes me think that maybe he'll come clean about what happened to their version of Peacemaker and like admit fault, because he trusts his brother so much until his brother tries to kill him for killing his brother. But we will see. After that, he goes back through his portal to go home, but at the same time, Argus is about to raid his house, which means we're probably going to get a very badass moment next episode where we're going to have Peacemaker going against Argus and either taking them out or trying not to get captured, which should be a fun time. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. I like the idea of what they've been doing so far, where we have this alternate Earth. That seems perfect, but there's definitely a darker side to things, where we have Rick Flag joining once again. We're going to have Argus going after Peacemaker because of Rick Flag Sr., and there's just so much that could be happening. I'm looking forward to seeing how they dive into this plot, and how when Peacemaker finds out that Earth is not the good Earth. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, so let me know. What do you think of this, and what do you think is going to be happening next? What are your theories? Because we can talk about in the comments down below. Let me know if you also noticed any other Easter eggs or references that I might have missed. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. And you get to stay up to date with all my Marvel, DC, and anime videos. Also, I apologize for last week where the audio was out of sync. It was in sync when I exported it, but the export was not. And I didn't watch it because I didn't have time. I just popped on YouTube and was like, okay, we're good. Not doing that again. I apologize. And if you watch it, thank you. And this video should be in sync. So thanks again. I'll talk to you next week.